Well, hi there, everybody out there in viewer land. If you are out there, please, as you know, the first thing that you do is say hello in the comments, tell us where you're watching from, and whether you're a writer or parent. If you are, let us know. And this is me. I am MM DeVoe, and I'm the founder of Pen Parentis and the author of 2 of the books on that big bookshelf. And can I do this right? This is Christina Chiu, and she is my absolutely beloved partner. And she is the curator of the Pen Parentis Literary Salons. And say hi, Christina.
Hello. We're really happy you're here. Thanks for coming. We're really excited by tonight's salon. It's our holiday salon.
Guys, what? Is that a tree? I have a tree. I'm sorry.
You want to talk a little bit about our wonderful contributors, the people who
Yes, let's thank our beautiful sponsors because we love them so much. First of all, I want to thank the 20 people who donated when you bought your tickets tonight, because we love everybody and we appreciate you, even like whatever you gave. That is so nice. So thank you for doing that. Also to our major sponsors, NYSCA, the New York Council on the Arts, and the Grote Foundation. They have been longtime supporters of us, and we appreciate them. So, yay, happy holidays. And also, of course, to Martha's Vineyard Institute of Creative Writing, who's a new sponsor, and they are sponsoring this salon and next salon. And they want you out there, if you are a writer parent, to know that they have parent writer residency money for you. All you have to do is apply for it and win it. So start writing. You have a long deadline. The deadline is in January. Go on their website to find out about it. And again, it is the Martha's Vineyard Institute of Creative Writing. Everybody that I know that has gone has absolutely loved it. It's like a career-changing thing. You meet a lot of other writers. And, if you win one of these fellowships, and they also have fellowships, I think, for BIPOC and queer, and like just a whole range of full fellowships, full paid fellowships. So, get on that. Also, of course, Writers Room NYC. Thank you so much.
Yay,
they sponsored our whole season this season, and they are just doing so great in their new space, which is a little bit 2 floors down from their old space. If you need a silent writing space that is full of other really badass writers, you can't stare. You have to be like quiet and write your own thing. But they're really cool writing space, and so we thank them for their sponsorship. Hey, look at this. Deirdre Wood from Long Beach, California is out there. Hi, and yeah, it's nice to see you, and good luck with your baby. And it's cool. I love the comments. You guys write your names and comment stuff because you're out there, and we want to know about it. And if you're writing, if you're watching this on playback, I'm just speaking to the future right now. If you're watching this on playback, we appreciate you for watching. Thank you so much. And if you want to be talked to by us directly, not in time travel mode, then you have to show up like these people did who are out there right now watching us on their home screens. So that's it. Let's talk about tonight, our holiday salon. Take it away, Christina.
Hello. Thanks for joining us. We're basically segueing into the holiday. We have these amazing writers today. We're really lucky. We have Michelle Wilden. She's the author of the novels Wine People, You're Not You, But For Long, and Bread and Butter. We also have Rena Priest. She's the author of Patriarchy Blues, which received an American Book Award. Her second collection, Sublime Subliminal, was the finalist for the Floating Bridge Press Chapbook Award. Her most recent book is Northwest Know-How, Beaches, includes poems, retellings of legends, and fun descriptions of 29 of the most beloved beaches in the Pacific Northwest.
And when you're searching for it, know-how has a K.
Yeah, know-how.
Like know-how. Like know.
I have some know-how. She also edited the anthology I Sing the Salmon Home. So finally, our first reader tonight is Amy Shearn. She has been with us before, and she has even hosted Pen Parentis before.
Live, not live, on screen. Amy's everywhere.
Amy Shearn is the award-winning author of the novels Dear Edna Sloan, Unseen City, The Mermaid of Brooklyn, and How Far is the Ocean from Here, as well as her forthcoming novel, Animal Instinct, which comes out in 2025.
2020. We'll say that again because I just talked over it. Animal Instinct comes out in 2025. But I want Michelle to know that Deirdre is out there because Deirdre and Michelle are in the same writing group.
Yes, I saw that. And because I am distracted, my first thought was like, oh my gosh, Dee Dee, there's another Deirdre Wood in Long Beach. Oh, that's you.
Nice.
Okay.
All right. Back to Amy.
So Amy Shearn worked as an editor at Medium, JSTOR, Condé Nast, and has taught at NYU, Sackett Street Writers Workshop, and Yale's Writers Workshop, the Writing Collab, an experimental cooperative she helped found. Amy's work has appeared in the New York Times Modern Love column, Slate, Poets and Writers, Literary Hub, Real Simple, Martha Stewart Living, O, the Oprah Magazine, and Coastal Living. Amy has an MFA from the University of Minnesota and lives in Brooklyn with her 2 children. Everyone, please welcome Amy Shearn.
This is not Amy Shearn.
Goals. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be here. I say yes to everything Pen Parentis wants from me because you guys are the best and throw the most fun salons and just can't say enough good things about you. So I'll stop now. And so happy to be here with Michelle and Rena. And thank you all for being here. Not just Deirdre, but additionally. And also, I was distracted by the news of the 8-month-old baby. I was like, is the baby here? You the baby? All right. No pressure. Okay, so thank you for shouting out this book, Animal Instinct, which comes out in March. Thank you. It is about a mom and a lot of other things. Do you think I should work in PR? It's about a lot of things. But I'm actually going to read a little bit from Dear Edna Sloan, which is my most recent book, because it's about a writer, and I just had a feeling like some of the people here might be interested. Okay, and it's an epistolary novel. It's all letters and text exchanges and things like that, which is either really fun or really annoying, depending on your relationship with that form. This is what I've learned. It's very divisive, and I don't take it personally. I understand. It was really fun to write. And I'm just going to, I think all you need to know is Edna Sloan is a writer who had a big novel come out in the 80s. It did all the things you want your novel to do. Sold well, was a huge critical success, won every award, and then she kind of just disappeared. And the book is a lot about an editor who's trying to find her again and figure out why she disappeared. And I think that's really all you need to know. I'll just tell you that I'm going to read you a little tiny bit that's Edna talking about writing. Would you believe me if I told you that want is a gift? That having the desire to write, even though it aches, though it sometimes feels impossible and makes everyday life occasionally a drag, is something special? Maybe this is something you can understand. As I grow older, what I find I really want is to recover my senses. They don't tell you that bit about aging, do they? Your senses literally dull. And you know too much. So every experience gets filtered through the millions of other times you've, say, smelled a baking pie, seen a rustle in the leaves. It's helpful in an evolutionary way, I suppose, but it separates one from the experience itself. Am I making sense? I don't want acclaim or reviews or interviews or advances. This is fiction. I personally want all those things, but it is very evolved. I've had those. I know they're fleeting. You know what I really want? I want my own clarity of sense, like I had when I was a child. Don't think I mean to say I idealize childhood. I remember that many things about it are difficult and boring and awful. what I do recall is that it had such a richness of senses, such openness, a kind of glorious confusion, an intermingling of everything. You know how it is before parents and teachers and other guardians of reality force you to wall all the senses apart from one another? I think you must. Some people don't understand, but if you yourself are truly a writer, and by that I mean someone who can't stop writing their way through everything, understanding life only by writing it down and out and around and through, and in that way examining its fabric from the inside out, then you will know what it is to, say, stoop down midway home from elementary school and find a perfect chestnut shining on the ground, to pick it up and hold it in your palm, to rub a finger over the smoothness and be transported with joy, to smell and taste and hear the chestnut all at once, to feel inspired by its pure goodness. Talk to it, give it a name, bring it home, put it on your windowsill, and then to discover with horror, after a few weeks of friendship, it has sprouted an ugly worm-like shoot because it feels like a betrayal of all that sensory smoothness, you know? Did you know that babies are so sensitive to light? My baby would scream if I accidentally rolled his stroller toward the sun, in part because their corneas are so pristine, not all scratched and scuffed like ours are from being out in the world, from the grit and debris of the universe all around us. We are literally dulled by our lives, by time. Skip a little bit. All I'm trying to say is I've spent my entire adult life trying to regain that purity and perceptiveness I used to have, that sensitivity to everything that made me want to be a writer in the first place. And I'll stop there. Thank you so much.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, amazing. Just made me want to life.
Right. Sometimes we do.
Life should be a verb. I want to.
I love that. Let's start that.
You want to life?
Yeah. I want to life some more. More lifing.
Yeah.
I kept thinking about that chestnut, one time my mom brought home these nuts, and I thought, oh, wow, chestnuts, it was around Christmas. Yeah, turned out it was a ginkgo. Do you know what ginkgo is like?
Oh, the smell.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you know my horror. Don't
I'm
want
sorry,
too much purity, too much.
I should have had like a warning, a chestnut warning. Right.
Amy, do you know Eliza or Elsa? Sorry. Do you know Elsa Arndale? Or is she just a new person that we can say hi to? Hi, Elsa.
Nice.
Hi, Cindy.
Cindy
We're just talking to people.
Cindy is a brilliant writer, just saying.
Yeah.
Not to put her on blast, but she is. Sorry.
Don't be sorry. Okay. That was amazing.
Thank you.
All right. Tough act to follow. Woohoo.
Our next reader is Michelle Wilden. She's the author of the novels Wine People, You're Not You, But Not for Long, and Bread and Butter. She's the editor of food. Well, she does a lot of food writing and editing, and she's really darn amazing at it. And her work has appeared in a million places: the New York Times Review, Book Review, Modern Love, Oprah Magazine, Poets and Writers, Real Simple Online, Best American Food Writing, Best New American Voices, Prairie Schooner, Tri-Quarterly. Michelle Wilden is a former executive editor of Tin House, which is pretty darn incredible. She's a novelist. She and novelist Susanna Danielle now run the Madison Writers Studio. You started it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she has one child and lives in Madison with her family. Everyone, please welcome our dear darling Michelle Wilden, who I've known forever, and I have not seen her. This is the first time I've seen her in like 20 years. So yay!
Well, thank you so much for having me. That is a tough act to follow. It was such a beautiful description of childhood that I just sort of like forgot that I had to do anything after that. I was just like, but anyway, thanks so much for having me. And what I'm going to read tonight is from Wine People, which is my novel that came out pretty recently. And all you really need to know about this is that it is about two women who work in a wine importing business. And this little passage is from the point of view of a character named Ren, who is now going to be thrown together with a colleague she has known for a while, has never trusted, and never felt very close to, whose name is Thessaly. Ren liked Thessaly as much as you could like someone who had been born into the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, which was to say, with caution and some resentment that she tried not to admit even to herself. And she didn't fully trust her, not because she thought Thessaly was untrustworthy, but rather she feared her own skills looked wan in comparison. Ren didn't have as much opportunity to shine in her less glamorous operational role, and it was hard to break out of your mold once you were labeled. All the stock wine people types worked at Lionel Garrett Imports. There were the inquisitors, like Gavin, who loved nothing more than firing questions at new people to be sure they had a clear grasp of their own ignorance. But those people shouldn't be confused with educators like Amit, who handled Midtown West. Nerdy, erudite, excitable, thrilled to share their joy in picking out nuances like kumquat skin or mushroom stem. There were the pocket square guys like Oliver, who worked on the Upper East Side, seemed British but weren't, focused heavily on Burgundy and Bordeaux, and ate a lot of game birds. The chemists, on the other hand, sank deep into the processes that created the wines, identifying the story in Brix levels, and yeast strains, and pH. The guy who had had what was now Thessaly's territory, he'd been fired for low sales, not spared even by being one of Gavin's best friends. He'd been a chemist. Their top-selling salesperson, Bob Harville, was a wine dad. Wine dads were the suburban reps who wore polo shirts and khakis, knew untold volumes, but were reluctant to burden you with it, and made bank without bragging about it because they did so selling such unsexy wine. Bob lived upstate and covered 400 miles of territory without ever enjoying the lifestyle that had drawn the rest of them into the business in the first place. And finally, there were the poets. They were often into biodynamics and natural wines. They were more literary than mystical. A not insignificant portion played bass in bands with names like Residual Sugar. In describing a wine, their references ranged from 70s cinema to Ovid to baseball to descriptions of musky scents and flavors that sounded intoxicating and a touch unsavory and took a while to register as thinly veiled references to oral sex. Ren's boss, Jonathan, was a poet. Now, most of the time, Ren loved her job. She could now talk to winemakers without stammering, assess a room and a wine list for opportunity, and sleep soundly on international flights. She could not imagine life without her work, not after she had built her whole existence in the shape of it. But sometimes, just sometimes, every now and then, she did wonder if she had somehow made a mistake, leaving fine dining for wine importing. Restaurant jobs were demanding, but finite. When she had walked away each night, Ren hadn't thought of it again until she returned to work. Now, she often struggled not to obsess over her past and future decisions. She sweated through her blouse every day. Would she ever work and not obsess? Sometimes she feared her ambition would always keep her slightly miserable. Thank you.
I love that last line. I feel like we could talk for 4 hours just on the last line.
So, Michelle, you did a lot of editing, like food and wine editing prior to writing this. How much research did you need to do to be on the inside? Do you know what I mean?
A lot more than I've ever done for any other book, because even though I had worked in a restaurant a long time ago, but I'm not a wine person. I'm not a wine expert, although it's my favorite thing to drink. And so just in order to know what is the world I want to talk about, I had to talk to people for months before I even started writing.
And did you have the idea, the concept of setting it in the wine world before you started the research, or was there something about the wine world that you were like, oh, I need to write about this?
I had sort of kept, a couple of memories from when I worked at a restaurant that's kind of similar to what Ren did, which I just remembered somebody saying one time that the winemakers who came and did like these wine dinners that we did all the time, it was a very fancy restaurant and very luxurious and intimidating. And I remember her saying, these guys are farmers, and thinking, oh, that's interesting. I never put the two together, this very luxurious, expensive thing, and it's agriculture. And so it just sat in the back of my head for apparently about 25 years. And then I thought, I wanted to write something fun that was fun to read and fun to write. And so I just took a guess and thought, well, I'll start researching. And if it is enjoyable, then I'm going to continue and I'm going to figure out how to write the novel.
That's so interesting to think of agriculture as having such a big span, because the minute you said that, I was like, yeah, that's like somebody in Brooklyn with 4 chickens saying that they're a farmer. But I mean, it's definitely more 4 chickens is more chickens than I will ever have in my Manhattan lot.
I have
So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's when I found out about the lanternfly and how it could decimate the wine industry in Long Island, I was like outside my building killing,
stomping the fly. Suddenly it like touches you.
And everyone's like, what is this crazy person doing? And I'm like, you don't understand. We have to save the wine. We have to save our trees. And then this year everyone else was doing it too. So I didn't look so crazy.
Yeah. You were prescient.
Yeah. But
we're gonna talk more.
So okay, so let's move on to our final reader, and then we have some questions.
Okay.
Questions. Our final reader tonight is Rena Priest. She's an enrolled member of the Lactamish Illumination. She served as the 6th Washington State Poet Laureate and was named the 2022 Maxine Cushing Gray Distinguished Writing Fellow. Priest is also the recipient of an Allied Arts Foundation Professional Poets Award and fellowships from the Academy of American Poets, Indigenous Nations Poets, Nia Taro, and Vedan Foundation. Her debut collection, Patriarchy Blues, received an American Book Award. Her second collection, Sublime Subliminal, was published as the finalist for the Floating Bridge Press Chapbook Award. Her most recent book, Northwest Know-How Beaches, includes poems, retellings of legends, and fun descriptions of 29, I'm so curious which ones they are, of the most beloved beaches in the Pacific Northwest. Priest's nonfiction has appeared in High Country News, Yes Magazine, Seattle Met, and elsewhere. She holds an MFA from Sarah Lawrence College, and she is one child. Everyone, please welcome Rena Priest.
Ait squalmas jalacha, o helixen, quinasatla tiakaya, squaltana, sanasnat, chachlamisan. Just a few words in my Chlimichasan, my native language, to say hello and how happy I am to be here with you all. So I'm going to share 2 poems. As we come up on the holiday season, I've been thinking about time and how it's like perceived differently between children and their parents. You know, like kids are like, can't wait, it's a million years till Christmas. And parents are like, oh my God, it's like 3 weeks away. So here we go. These are both from my new collection, Dancing to the Ticking of the Doomsday Clock, which I'm hoping will be out in 2025. And this one is called Poetry Professor. Poetry Professor tells us a story of how he spent the afternoon watching a tiny slug move along a garden path, certain that the slug's slow nature meant it could see flowers turn their beautiful heads toward the sun. The poet professes that we too can live in that ease with no need for time-lapse photography to apprehend such subtlety. We could live there in poems, free from habits of human time. Metaphor lets our thoughts be photons, shooting across the universe in an instant, or glaciers growing over eons of fallen snow, rivers of ice flowing so imperceptibly slow. And then this one is called Before Clocks. Before clocks to keep time meant music, the steady rhythm of a beat, the playful plucking of a string, the full throb of a drum sounding to the steps of feet. To keep time meant stillness, the steady passing of a day, no need for rush or delay in the fluid timeline of one's own way. To keep time meant tides, the waxing and waning of the moon, the easy pace of later and soon, the warmth of the sun declaring high noon. To keep time meant seasons, the rippling rings of a tree, the changing disposition of the sea, the migration of harvests leading us to where we need to be, and it always happened right on schedule. So those 2 poems I thought kind of fit this anticipation stage that we're in. The holiday creeps up on us or rushes up on us, whichever the case may be. But yeah,
The second
was
one's so
beautiful.
musical.
Thank you.
Just lovely. Wow.
Just hearing you read it, it's just so, it's always so wonderful to have fiction and poetry, that just the movement is so different. And it's always so great to have a mix. We don't always have a mix. Most of our salons are either, well, our next salon is all poetry, but usually we focus more on fiction, and we're bringing more and more poetry in. And I think it's so nice to have this great mix. All of you guys together is just so beautiful to have this.
It's really interesting because like listening to fiction, you let it wash over, you kind of let it wash over you. And when it's poetry, like within the first phrase, it's like key in, like you better key in or you're going to miss something, like pay attention. So it sort of wakes you up, which kind of brings us back to the Edna Stone thing of like, pay attention. Like, it's kind of great. I love it. I love the mix.
So, well, I'm going to start by just asking, now that it's the holiday and we're all so busy doing all this other stuff. My kids are older now, so it's less, which is great for me. But like even in the work that you read tonight, like chestnuts and like wine and well, all we need is like a fireside, right? And but when you were reading, Rena, when you were reading about the photons and the glaciers, just yeah, this is a good Christmas. This is a good moment. I'm gonna hold on to this because you guys are, Christmas is like all these ideas of like gifting and all this crap, but really it's just these beautiful, pure moments. What was that you said just before? Pure goodness, Amy, right? Just like, it's really those moments and just listening to you guys read. And Michelle, when you're talking about your character and how she's so ambitious and she's really got all these characters, right? Like figured out. Where does she fit into all this? And where do you fit into as authors? Where do you fit into this whole holiday thing, life,
year,
the holiday, end of
rethinking your
year
lives,
yeah,
thinking of
and
your
your writing, where does your
placing
writing
that.
fit into all of this, and how does life fit into your writing?
That's a big question. But I'm actually really curious about the one part of it, like your ambition. And because it's a dangerous and interesting question to ask a writer how ambitious they are. But we're women and we're not meant to be ambitious. So screw that. Let's talk about it. So
well, I actually was talking about her character, like because she had mentioned it.
Yeah.
But yeah, why not? Like, I do think it takes a great deal of ambition to be a writer, especially a writer who sticks with it. Many years ago, and Milda was probably there because I know Milda from Columbia, where I took a class with Michael Cunningham, and he said, if you take a look around here, the stars in this group aren't necessarily the ones who will make it. The ones who make it are the ones who stick with it and they don't give up.
He said that,
right? And
he said that right after almost giving up on this really. Like, I'm not sure if I like this novel about my mom and Virginia Woolf. I don't know. Does that sound dumb to you guys? Like, that kept me going through, I can't tell you how many days, years, decades.
Well, I mean, I think all of you have been at this for many, many years, right? So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, what does it take? Like the ambition, to get your claws in there and hold on. How do you do it in your weakest moments?
Let's start with Michelle.
Yeah.
I feel like it's I don't think of it often as ambition so much as just pure stubbornness, that for a long time I was like, well, I'm just going to keep doing this. It's going to be part of my life and that's it. And we were talking a little bit before the show started about the idea of like the writer, the starving writer, up in the garret. And don't get me wrong, like I'm sort of in a garret right now, but that's not important right now. And you don't need to see the rest of my room. But like, I never felt like it had to be that. I felt like it could be part of life and in life. And that, this would be always a part of it. And so that made it, I think, doable, that I didn't have this unrealistic sense that it was like, it's all or nothing, that's the only way you can possibly do it. It's like, no, I saw people who managed to have it in their lives. And I was like, well, I'm going to do that too. And so just having the habit of it and all of that was helpful. And then it builds on itself after a while. You're like, okay, no matter what I do next, I've written 4 novels. Like nobody can take that. Nobody can say, oh, you didn't do it. I'm like, no, I did do it. And we'll figure out what comes next when I, like right now I'm sort of partially into a new one and haven't figured it out yet. But you start to trust after a while that even when you were like, this feels weird, I have no idea if I'm going to go anywhere with this. I have no confidence, but that you felt that before and that you'll figure it out. And so you just have to build that kind of confidence, that you'll get past the hump, even if you don't have confidence, of course, that you'll never hit the obstacles.
That's a
I just
great
want to
answer.
say, I'm like listening to that. Listen,
Just
true.
poured over me.
But it's so true. Yes, Amy, don't mute.
You know what I mean. You get it. Yeah, I love the way you said that, Michelle. And I think too, just, I think that's worth acknowledging, that even if you have, everyone here has written many things, worked on many projects, it's not that it doesn't get easier, but case in point, Michael Cunningham being like, I don't know, is this idea stupid? It's really stupid. Like every project is sort of starting fresh. You're always there with the blank page, and after a while you have more muscle memory. You're like, I've felt this pain before and I got through it. So there's that, but every book is its own book that you have to learn how to write. So I think like remembering, just taking it project by project. And I think just like I don't know, thinking about, I definitely used to, maybe in graduate school or before I'd published anything, have more kind of concepts of an ambition for like the trajectory of a career. And then, when you're in it, you're sort of like, oh, wow, that's the thing I have no control over. But what I do have control over is finishing this next book. And like that becomes the most ambitious thing. It's like, I'm going to try to write the best book or the best story or the best poem that I can. Like that's the next big.
For sure.
Rena, how about you?
For me, I feel like it's this magical little sanctuary that I have outside of ordinary life that is always going to be there for me. Like I worked in government for a long time. I wrote federal grants and stuff and other things in government. And that's like bureaucracy and all that. It's so different from poetry.
The polar opposite of poetry.
Yeah.
Although they're both about word counts and putting it in the lines.
Yeah. I would flee to the poems after a day of work, just because it was like a way to have music and beauty and happiness and whimsy in my life, and it'll always be there for me. Like sometimes when I think, oh, I can't write or whatever, and you start to feel sad or desperate for that voice, and then all of a sudden a little cadence pops into your head, and and then you're writing again. And so I think that's part of it, is if it's just a part of your way of being, then it's
I love the idea that nobody can take it away from you. It's like, it's you. And sometimes that blockage it's because you want more than you think you're capable of doing, or you just don't know what the right way is to get to the.
Yeah.
But
actually, ambition has gotten in my way at times, because I think that I should be farther along or I should be doing something else, and then you get discouraged, and then when I let that go a little bit, and then just kind of be like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to do this and just do that thing, then eventually I'm okay. That feeling of being okay with the writing is where I get to, and then it ends up being okay in the world, somehow. It's crazy.
do you feel that discouragement can be a cycle? That like, because you're discouraged, you get more discouraged, and then you don't write as much, and then you get more discouraged. It's like, I mean, there's so many ways out of that. I know, like, one of them is to just do like a vomit draft is one, right? Where you just like really, really don't care. Nobody's going to see this. So we're just going to write it all down. What are some other random like techniques that you do or you tell your students to do when they are in the discouragement cycle?
Yeah, Priscilla Long, her book, The Writer's Portable Mentor, has this thing in the early chapters. It's like 10 writing exercises that you can do to start a draft. And she's talking about nonfiction, but you can do it for fiction or poetry too. But and part of that is sprints, like little minute-long sprints. So you're just writing everything that you want to have included in the piece for a minute at a time. And that way it's like low stakes, low pressure. 1 minute, it goes by like that, and you have like, I guess it's like the word vomit thing that you're mentioning.
It's different because it's not in. It's a little bit different because it's not intended to be the work itself. You're just talking about like just what you hope to put into it at some point. So it's like a list or like a thought bubble thing.
Well, is there a way that you are able to get into the flow? And this is for all of you. I mean, when you are in a moment where you feel a little stuck, like how, I mean, I think it's easy for some people to say, okay, I'm going to write a vomit draft, blah, 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 and get it out. But for some people, when they're stuck, they're stuck. But, so how do they move out of that? When they're sprinting, like, do they just sprint, a minute about anything, or like, what would you suggest for someone?
Another idea.
Michelle?
I mean, for me, if I am feeling really stuck, a lot of times it's because I have forgotten to stay connected to the feeling that made me want to write in the first place. So I will return. Most of us have books or pieces or poems or whatever that make us want to write. And, like Dee Dee, who's been in my class before, has heard me say that that's not the same as your favorite book. It's something that fired something in your head and first made you think that. So I go back and I reread that. And if I'm not touching those works often enough, then things do go kind of dormant. You were like, wait, what was I trying to do? Who was that? And you feel the brain kind of fizzle. There's no electricity there. But it's amazing to me how fast it comes back when you just start feeding that a little bit.
Cool.
I love that. I was going to say something similar about just like sort of feeding the machine, which I think also kind of actually connects back to Christina, what you were talking about just with the holidays. Like, well, wait, how do we write when there's all these interruptions and all of these, there's like a lot of input in this time of year, I think often. And how do you sort of, or there's a lot of output is what I meant to say. It's like there's a lot of different creative projects that go into
most definitely
right. That energy is being asked to be used in many other places. And I think, to Michelle, what you were saying, I think sometimes the answer is weirdly just almost to like stop efforting so much, you can sort of, there's definitely a time and place for butt in the chair, do sprints, just write it out. And then I think there's also time for just, it's like the Julia Cameron artist date concept, just doing something.
I love that.
Every day or every week that just feeds you and that is nourishing to you. And
could be totally stupid.
Right? Yeah. It's like it can be reading a book that you love or listening to a great piece of music or going to see great art, or like Julia Cameron in The Artist's Way suggests going to a pet store and looking at birds, like anything that sort of just sparks that sense of awe, that kind of, connects you back with like the play element of it.
Definitely. Love that. Another thing that I just thought of with the holidays is that it's a time suck. You have it is crazy how much time it can take to wrap something if you have to go out and buy the tape and then the thing ran out and then the tape paper is too short, whatever. And like everything takes longer than it's supposed to at the holidays. And there's usually extra people in your house. Right. So give us a idea or a tip or something that you have done to escape, to get time. How have you managed to create find or make time in a time of your life, it doesn't have to be the holidays, where everything was chaos, and really a normal person would have been like, I don't have time to write and I'm taking a break.
Which is sometimes when you need to be writing the most, right? 'Cause,
Mm.
oh, I just have to process that thing, or I just need to be connected to my own brain. Yeah.
Although I will say, like when you said, "Oh, how do we write in the holidays?" I was like, "Do we write during the holidays?
You don't have to.
Maybe
No.
sometimes you just don't torture
Have a
yourself."
holiday that's an actual holiday from your
Yeah,
job.
because I
Yes.
really believe that. I feel like we don't have to be, we don't have to flog ourselves all the time. Like this
Right.
can be a thing that you can give yourself a break from.
Exactly.
But that said, when I was working on Wine People during the pandemic, when everybody was home, and my husband was like working downstairs, and he has the loudest voice on the face of this earth. He's just hollering away down there, and I wrote, like most of that book with white noise in earbuds. And so often whether it is like there's just some way that just gives you a little bit of insulation from the world, and it can be white noise or music or whatever. But that is another one of those really simple little things that will really shut quite a lot out.
One of the things that I actually wanted to ask you about was I recently found the first story I ever wrote. It was in high school, and it made me go, oh, yeah, I really get why I wanted to be a writer. You know, like, wow, you know, and I started working on that story like again, and it was exactly what you said, Michelle. Like, it just holding on to that feeling of why I wanted to write to begin with, and how much more meaning it had now because I actually know a little more. So it was just so interesting. How about you guys? When did you guys realize you guys were, going to write something or wanted to be a writer, or what were those magical moments? Rena?
So there's been a few for me. I remember when I was 7, I told my mom I was going to be a poet because I wrote a little poem about springtime on this little piece of paper.
Nice.
And my
You were
teacher,
right.
the
7 years old.
yeah, and they published it in the paper, and she snipped it out and she brought it to me and she gave it to me, and there I was in newsprint with my little poem and my
Oh
little
my
name.
God!
And I was like, oh my God. And I brought it home to my mom and I was like, I'm going to be a poet when I grow up. So that was like one time. And then, later I had these other ideas about what I was going to be. And I remember telling my dad all about I was going to be a lawyer and blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, I think if that makes you happy, you should do that, but only if it makes you happy. And then it was like, oh my God, I have to decide to be happy first. And so then that was like a long period of trying to figure out what would make me happy. And then in undergrad, I thought I was going to study theater, but it turned out like not to be the thing for me for a lot of different reasons. And then I took a poetry class, and it felt like being clicked into place, like click. And then I had friends, and I had teachers that I loved. I had a mentor that I really loved, and it just kind of was like riding that current path of least resistance from there. So.
Nice. It's a beautiful journey.
Yeah.
Amy, how about you?
Love that. Yeah, I think like Rena, I really always wanted to be a writer. I'm glad it's worked out in that it has, because I didn't really have another plan. I had some moments where I was like, maybe I'll be a teacher because it seems like it'd be fun to make the bulletin boards, like for in the hall.
Yeah, the boards, yes.
Which is like kind of, I think, not that big a part of teaching. But classroom, elementary school teaching. But yeah, from when I was really young, I wanted to write. And I think it was just like so many writers, just came from being a really big reader and just feeling like I wanted to, just reading a book that really took over my life and just being like, I want to be in conversation with that book, or I want to do what that book did, or do something different. And just, I think it would have been some creative field no matter what. And for whatever reason, and I I always think now I've like made that the story that I always wanted to be a writer. And when I look back at early journals, I remember that there were other interests. I also really loved painting. I liked playing music. But writing was the thing that I guess felt the most portable, the most accessible, and the most connected to the things that I wanted to say. Which is kind of just a long way of saying that I was just a big nerd who liked reading books and was like, do more. Yeah.
A lot of us got catapulted because we were big nerds reading books.
Right?
Some of us are still big nerds reading books.
I would rather be reading than writing, honestly. It's much more fun.
Michelle, do you have an answer?
Yeah, I mean, sort of like Amy was saying, I liked doing a lot of different stuff. I liked theater and I liked painting and all that good stuff. And so, my mom would be like, well, here's a summer camp for this and here's a summer camp for that. And so when I was like 15, she was like, well, here's a writing summer camp. And so I went and I stayed at like a dorm, and it was kind of like, it was like bread loaf for teenagers. So like bread loaf without the booze. So not like bread loaf at all. And, but it was like, I came home and I was like, that was the best week of my life. Like I felt, I never thought about writing in this way. I loved to read, but I'd never talked about writing in this way. I don't know if they gave us Ann Beatty and Raymond Carver and Gabriel Garcia Marquez, or if I found them in the bookstore and the covers just did their job. And I was like, that looks good. I will read it. And it turned out they were wonderful. But I was like, okay, that's it. I'm one way or another, it's going to be there. So it's really like, it's kind of like the Thunderbolt.
Oh, amazing. Okay. And now I have a deep dive question. And so what author's career are you hoping to emulate? Or would you hope to emulate? What career track, like when you were little or now or whatever, what scintillating human being inspires you to maintain your career the way it's going now?
Wait, I have an immediate answer because I was having this conversation with.
It's a great conversation.
And because my answer is one that's like deeply disappointing to
the world,
like my agent and anyone in publishing. I shouldn't say that, but I feel like Karen Joy Fowler, you know her? She's one of those writers who every book she writes is completely different from the last one.
Yeah.
And she can do no wrong. She started off writing a lot of sci-fi. She has written some very kind of like commercial bestsellers. She wrote a book called The Jane Austen Book Club that was like a bestseller, was made to movies. She also has written these like very literary books. One of her I feel like kind of breakthrough book was We Are All Completely Beside Ourselves, which came out in 2013, which I feel like is that combination of like literary and smart and funny and accessible. And I don't know anyone who read that book who didn't love it. And then her next book was like a fictional biography of John Wilkes Booth. Like her brain, I love it so much. And I truly just love and admire how she's always doing something totally different than the last book. Like the publishing industry doesn't love that. If you go to your agent, you're like,
that's hard.
Every book is totally different. Like, this is like makes everyone's life harder. But I feel like as writers, we want to keep playing and exploring. And
yeah, that's interesting. Like diversity in your own art. How do you get to be that person who people are like, oh, I wonder what they're going to do next. Like, how do you get to be that person
and keep publishing? Like I think a lot of people do that, and their publishers are like, okay.
Yeah, that was nice. Can we go back to the thing that sounds? Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah. Rena, do you have an answer about that?
Yeah. So this is gonna be like speaking of that, I just got an email from a friend, and she was talking about how Louise Gluck in every book looks at what she did in her previous book and then challenges herself to do something totally different. So there's that. I think that's interesting. I think that's a beautiful ambition to have, by the way, Amy. But I also was talking about this with friends, and they said, "What would your ideal career look like?" And I thought, "Oh my God, I want Elena Ferrante's career," because she wrote these, huge blockbuster books, but nobody knows who she is. And she part of the condition was that she was not going to do any publicity around it, and she was not going to be a known person associated with her work. And I was like, oh my God, can you even imagine what would that be? Because I like the process of writing, but I think kind of just this is fun for me. But I think if you were going to be at that level, I don't think I would love to be a personality, associated with my work. I would like to be behind the scenes more. So that's kind of whose career it would be ideal to have.
Cool. Michelle?
Mine would be Laurie Colwin, because this woman died, I think, in 1998, in her 40s. She was really young, and I don't think her books have ever gone out of print. And they are, she really was the person who made me think like, oh, we can write about food and we can use it in fiction to talk about character and to just reveal the scene. But she was so funny and so light, but really smart. And so like that sort of lightness of tone and that fleetness is not, it doesn't mean it's dumb, it's incredibly, incredibly smart. And I just love the way she sinks you into a world, and she's such a great pleasure to read and the person to be in. And she wrote about food beautifully, and she's still finding people. So that's really my person.
There have really been some amazing kind of books about just I'm thinking of this Fernet Branca book. Fernet Blanca. What is it? Yeah. Something with Fernet Blanca. Does anybody remember the name of this title of this book?
I don't, but I remember I know the drink. Does that count?
Yes, but there is an absolutely hold your stomach laughing. It is a sort of a complete 180 on I went to Tuscany to find myself and become a writer. It's this dude goes to Tuscany in a rundown, beautiful place out in Tuscany, and just gets hammered on this Fernet Branca, which is apparently disgusting after dinner. Not disgusting, but it's like an after dinner, Jägermeister. It's super herby and not delicious. And he's drinking it by the gallon, and it's very funny. It's slapstick, but it's so.
But the thing about humor is that it just opens that door so that people can actually feel other things sometimes, it just gets them kind of a little off guard. And I love that when authors can do that, because everything feels so light and airy and fun, and, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, like that. I felt that in a way that I would never have felt that if I had not been open and just in full of enjoyment, So that's always really wonderful. Rena's talking to her daughter. I can see it right now.
Let's talk about daughters. No, let's not talk about our children, but let's talk about our creative practice as regards the fact that we had kids in the house. So everybody's kids are older-ish, middle?
13.
So nobody has babies in the house, right? But we remember having babies in the house, and we were writers when we had babies in the house. Yes, did we all have? So can we tell our audience maybe a trick or a tip or something that you did that you think might have been, if not unique, something that you've shared with other writers on how to get through something that is a writer, you know what I'm trying to say. Do the thing. Read my mind. Amy, start. You're best at reading my mind. I know. We've co-hosted.
It's so funny. I was just okay. So I was for something I'm writing. I'm not just reading my old journals, although I do.
I was like, I'm
my journal for this. When I was in 2011, when I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and it's so funny to look through it because there's lots of pages like this. Was adding there. And this looks like my daughter, just okay, yeah, I can write too. But it's this tiny notebook that, and this is 2 years of a journal. I was not writing a lot, but it was always just kind of stuck in the diaper bag. And nice. But just I think it speaks to I just got much less precious about my writing routines. You know, when I was in graduate school, I was like, all right, I will summon the, forces of my muse, and everything had to be just so. And I had like a special pen and a special notebook and all, a time of day and a special tea. And I just felt like there were all of these things that these totems that I just had to let go and just get much less precious about it and be like editing pages of a book while waiting in line to register my daughter for toddler ballet at the Y. You're just like, this is not perfect, but this is what's happening now. And then I think another just very practical tip that I always share with parents with young children is just like putting it on the calendar, in a way that you're like, this is my time to write, and it's 2 hours, it's whatever is possible, and we're going to try to make it non-negotiable. I did a babysitting swap with a poet mom that I knew, and we just watched each other's kids for 2 hours a week. That was all it was. It was, easy to fit in, but we were like, you cannot use this time for anything but writing. If I find out you did a chore or went to the grocery store, I'm going to be so mad at you. Like, this is writing time. And just making it so that like someone else was depending on me, I was depending on her. And it just like became a regular part of the weekly cadence, which I think really helped.
Nice. Rena?
So for me, I think I sort of, maybe I would say go ahead and rely on like after school programs and extracurricular activities. I think it allows you that time, but it also really enriches your child's life. I used to feel kind of guilty about like leaving my daughter at the after school program. And then she later would tell me these stories about things that they would do there and experiences that she would have. And I was like, oh my God, that's way more fun than just sitting at home with me. Like while I say, shh, I'm writing, So I would say that's a great resource.
Yeah, that's good. Nice. My son was he hated going to the after school programs. Like he was just like always giving me all these reasons why he shouldn't be doing them. Most of them are off the internet and they were very good reasons. And it was hard. He was a hard negotiator, but now get this, he got a job at the after school program because he's 22 years old. And he's like, wow, this is really hard. This is a lot harder than like, and it was so funny because it was his very first job was literally in the same after school program. And he was the guy who was handing out the pretzels. Right. And then because that was like a 1 semester job. So now he has a job actually teaching at an actual middle school because he has this, the job experience. Anyway, so yeah, I'm good with after school programs too, even if they don't like them. Michelle?
Yeah, because I had no better plans for you. Like, trust me, you want to go do that.
It's taste or Caillou.
Yeah, exactly. I'm writing. I don't need anything. But so one of the best things somebody ever told me was my friend Susanna, because I would be like, oh my God, what if I'm not writing the same time every week? How do you keep this schedule going? And she was like, well, I look at each week and I go, okay, what can I do this week? And again, like half the time it is these incredibly simple things that somebody had to tell me for whatever the reason. And so just the fact that you can acknowledge like, yeah, this week it's 2 hours, but you're not completely derailed because it was a different week. And you're not like, well, now I'm not a writer, because I didn't write at the same time every single day. So yeah, I just believe in like being flexible according to what life actually is.
That is exactly what we do in the accountability groups that we do. We have these accountability groups that are online that a title member, like supporters of Pen Parentis, can go to these for free. And they are weekly, and you set your own goal for your own week. And then at the end of the week, you're accountable to your group. Like, did you do it? But it changes from week to week, depending on like if your mother-in-law's in town for the holidays, or, if your twins are having birthdays, like, okay, you have their stuff, somebody broke a leg. That's terrible. But now I'm going to be sitting in an emergency room. Maybe I'll write. Like, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I think that idea of, you meet writers who say, I sit down every day at 9 and I don't get up until 3 or whatever. I take a break for lunch and then I go back to my writing or whatever. And I think that works for some people, but when you have kids, just life is just jumping around on you. And if you're going to be inflexible, that just makes it so much harder.
Yeah.
I know,
there's really no wrong way though,
inflexible.
because there's no wrong way, because some people actually have to be severe with themselves or they won't do it. And some people, if they are severe with themselves, they get so discouraged because they don't make it. So you
That's
have to know, like, I think it's really about getting to know yourself and your own creative practice, and then accepting that that's okay, because guess what, you're writing now. Like,
Right.
whatever, if you're a morning, the amount of times that I have seen panels, not our panels, because in our panels we're very open-minded, but in other people's panels, no, but I've seen like authors kind of get into it about whether morning writing or night writing is better. And I'm like, for you, morning writing is better. For you, night writing, like you, how can people be so like, this is my practice, it is the right practice? Yes, for you.
Exactly.
Go do that. Like, do it only because it works. Like,
I mean, even like reading in the chat, Sumit Mata right here. Hello. Like, he's like, I'm sorry I'm late. He just ran to get his kids. That's just what it is, right?
I think it's his wife using her husband's account. And it's a complex thing in New Zealand right now. It's a different time of day. It's all like, yeah. But we're glad you're out there. Yeah. Well, guys, this is crazy, but it's the end of our hour. So I want you, all of you viewing audience, whether you are here now or in the future, please come back next month in January on the second Tuesday. It is our annual Winter Poetry Salon. We will have poets.
Yes, we have Marsha LeBeau, Tate Walker, Christina Cook, and Brian Simino. So please come back.
Gorgeous circle. They are going to be amazing. And I would like to, again, thank our beautiful sponsors, the DeGroat Foundation, NISCA Foundation. NISCA is the New York Council on the Arts. And the Writers Room, New York City. Thank you so much for sponsoring the season. And of course, the Martha's Vineyard Institute of Creative Writing. Don't forget to apply for their Parent Writer Fellowship to be able to go to their residency, because they completely fund it if you win. So that would be very cool. And thank you, Deirdre, and everybody else who put your names out there so we could actually talk to you. Cindy, we're glad you came. Everybody else who came live, we love you. Go have dinner. And all beautiful authors, thank you so much for coming. Everybody, round of applause for each other.
Thank you so much, everyone.
So much.
And Christina, thank you so much. So much fun. Thanks for having us.